Breaking news tonight, the rally in the middle of a pandemic. The president speaking to a packed crowd as 6 members of his advance team there test positive for coronavirus.
Oh, I'm not wearing a mask. I haven't yet. I'm not going to start today.
The controversy over holding a rally indoors right now. Standoff at the Justice Department. The president fires the powerful U.S. attorney in New York after he refused to step down. Democrats claim he was fired for investigating the president. The new ruling today on that bombshell book from John Bolton and whether it can be published. Pushed to the brink, the Florida hospital now at capacity amid a coronavirus surge. Major League Baseball shutting down training camps. The new age group now getting hit the hardest as the death toll in the U.S. crosses 120,000. Statues toppled, not just Confederate leaders torn off pedestals, but now monuments to George Washington and Ulysses S. Grant. The debate over whether it's gone too far. And there's good news tonight, the unlikely friendship that's got everyone on board.
This is NBC Nightly News with Jose Diaz-Balart.
Good evening. I'm Kate Snow in for Jose tonight. For months now, large gatherings have been canceled. No concerts, no stadiums filled for sporting events. But tonight in Tulsa, Oklahoma, an arena is packed with thousands rallying for President Trump's re-election. Staging the event in a city that still struggles with racial injustice and during a pandemic drew strong criticism and warnings from public health officials. Today, we learned 6 members of the president's advance team tested positive for coronavirus. We have correspondents covering several angles. We begin with White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell.
The president left Washington late today for a destination he has not seen in 110 days, the campaign trail.
The event in Oklahoma is unbelievable. The crowds are unbelievable.
Coronavirus that put rallies on pause has now struck members of his own campaign staff and 2 Secret Service personnel who are on the ground in Tulsa this week. The campaign announced 6 members of the advance team tested positive out of hundreds of tests performed, and quarantine procedures were immediately implemented. And given those infections, no COVID-positive staffers will be at today's rally or near attendees or elected officials. Today, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt emphasized a balance of personal freedoms and health precautions.
We've seen an increase in positive cases, which we expected when we reopened. But you have to realize 68% of those cases have been under the age of 50, and our death rate has been 0.09% under the age of 50.
After Vice President Mike Pence arrived, he made a stop at a Tulsa community center where he met with local black leaders and spoke of the city's painful racial history, a massacre in 1921. Outside the BOK Center, the president's supporters focused on this as a celebration during a hard time for the country.
It's just a great honor that Trump would choose to come here.
Everybody in America matters. We're all red, white, and blue.
Well, how he's going to stop the riots, and he's always for America, us people.
And Kelly joins us now. Kelly, what is the campaign doing about the risk of further spread from those positive coronavirus cases that happened on the staff?
After that group of positive test results for coronavirus among the campaign staff, officials tell us they are doing contact tracing. Remember, these staffers have been on the ground here in Tulsa for days, staying in a hotel, eating restaurant meals, visiting different locations, and we don't know if any have been wearing masks. Back to you.
That's interesting. Kelly O'Donnell, thank you. Before tonight's rally, Tulsa was already seeing a rise in coronavirus cases, but many supporters at tonight's rally say it's well worth the risk. Morgan Chesky has more.
Tonight, Tulsa, Oklahoma, packed with thousands who waited for days, coming from all over the country to see the president they want for another term.
There is a higher risk with this many people here, and I understand that, but I feel like this is an opportunity I'm not going to get another chance like this in my life.
A campaign moment caught in a pandemic. Everyone who walked through the gates handed a mask and checked for temperature. Precautions coming as COVID cases surge in Oklahoma.
Does that give you any reservation about tonight?
No, it doesn't. I think we can be as safe as we can, and we have to go from there. We have to keep living.
Security taking on safety by blocking off streets, checking bags, and building a wide perimeter to avoid any clashes with protesters. Despite that, a group marching for Black Lives Matter taking a knee, chanting as rallygoers made their way towards the arena. One woman, Sheila Buck, pulled from the crowd by campaign security for wearing an "I Can't Breathe" shirt. Police saying her ticket was revoked, and when Buck refused to leave, officers stepped in.
They're arresting me. They're arresting me.
With an officer under each arm, we followed, asking Buck why police said she was under arrest.
I was trespassing and breaking the law. And they're arresting me. I've never been arrested before in my life.
Buck was charged with obstruction of police, the only arrest we witnessed, as crowds eager to see the president would not be deterred.
And Morgan joins us now from Tulsa. Morgan, the protests, I understand, have been growing throughout the day.
Yeah, Kate, they certainly have, and that's why we're starting to see an increased police presence here. I want to show you these Tulsa officers that have just shown up in riot gear, blocking off part of the street near this entrance. We have several hundred protesters with Black Lives Matter behind me, but as of right now, no violent clashes yet. Kate?
All right, Morgan, thank you. Before President Trump left for Tulsa today, he fired a U.S. attorney who's been investigating the commander-in-chief's top allies, including Rudy Giuliani. It's the latest clash over highly sensitive cases involving the president's inner circle. Justice correspondent Pete Williams reports.
Jeffrey Berman arrived for work this morning, insisting he's still the U.S. attorney, even though Attorney General William Barr announced Friday night that Berman was stepping down so the president could nominate Jay Clayton, chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, to take over. Berman shot back that he had no intention of resigning and would leave only when the Senate confirmed a replacement. Administration officials tell NBC News the switch was President Trump's idea. They say Clayton played golf with the president a few weeks ago, said he was leaving the SEC, and expressed interest in the U.S. attorney position. But the president tonight says it wasn't his doing.
We have a very capable attorney general, so that's really up to him. I'm not involved.
The move to oust Berman set off alarm bells because he's been overseeing a federal investigation of the business practices of Rudy Giuliani, President Trump's personal lawyer, and prosecuting two former Giuliani business associates, accusing them of violating campaign spending laws. Democrat Chuck Schumer, New York senior senator, said Clayton should withdraw to spare his reputation. And Republican Lindsey Graham, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, said he'd allow Schumer to block Clayton's nomination. In a letter late today, Barr said Berman put public spectacle over public service. Barr said at his advice, the president fired Berman effective today.
The Southern District of New York is involved in a number of very sensitive cases involving friends and allies of the president. And so even if it's lawful, it just looks very, very bad.
Barr also directed the Justice Department's Inspector General to monitor the New York office to make sure that cases are handled appropriately.
And Pete's with us now. Pete, on another subject today, a federal judge said he won't block the publication of John Bolton's explosive book.
Right, he said it's too late to stop it. As he said at a hearing, the horse is out of the barn with so many copies already in circulation, being shipped worldwide. But the judge also said that Bolton did disclose classified information in the book, exposing himself to a lawsuit for the government to seize his book profits and to potential criminal charges, Kate.
Pete Williams, always appreciate you being with us. Now to breaking news overseas. Police say one man is under arrest after a stabbing spree at a park an hour outside of London. Local media there are reporting that at least 3 people were killed, several others injured. Police say there is no indication that this incident is linked to a Black Lives Matter protest that took place in that area earlier in the day. COVID deaths in our country passed a staggering 120,000 today, and there's no sign the virus is letting up. And now, as cases surge, there's another new concern, just how young many of those patients are. Erin McLaughlin has the latest.
Tonight in Florida, an alarming rise in COVID-19 cases.
We're seeing positive tests at increasing rates.
Record numbers for 3 consecutive days. More than 4,000 cases reported today. An all-time high.
We as a hospital, we are overwhelmed. We are at capacity. We are increasing numbers every day.
The governor says the average age of a Florida-based COVID cases dropped from the 60s to 37, and that trend is expected to continue.
Our cases are shifting in a radical direction younger.
There's also growing concern in Arizona, where ICU bed availability has reached new lows at just 15%. Only 257 left across the entire state.
It's been a change of tone at the hospital, more of a sense of urgency. There's talks of crisis nurses coming in soon and helping us out.
In Phoenix and Tucson, masks now required in public starting today. The spikes in cases hitting Major League Baseball. NBC News confirms all training camps in Arizona and Florida will temporarily close after multiple teams reported COVID cases. New York's governor announced the Yankees and Mets will move their camps from Florida to New York. And across the South, clusters of cases among young people, including a spike in Mississippi, linked to fraternity rush parties at Ole Miss. At Louisiana State University, more than 100 cases have been connected to bars near campus.
Every Louisiana needs to do a real gut check.
And in South Carolina, an outbreak at Clemson University. 28 student athletes tested positive during summer training, most showing no symptoms. The state on Friday reported its largest single-day increase, one of 26 states seeing an uptick of at least 25%. Tonight, the coronavirus surge sweeping more than half the country.
And Aaron joins me now. Aaron, there's also news tonight about a hydroxychloroquine clinical trial. What more can you tell us?
That's right, Kate. The NIH stopped its trial, finding that while the treatment does no harm, it also provides no benefit, building on similar results from the FDA announced earlier in the week. Kate?
Aaron McLaughlin, thank you. Now to our series, Inequality in America. Tonight, with the president there, we're taking a closer look at Tulsa and how its history has shaped major divides when it comes to the economy, health care, and even how long people live. Morgan Radford reports.
Here in Tulsa, a tale of two cities.
The north side has been left behind, while the south side has grown economically.
Two neighborhoods just miles apart, but the inequality between them is massive.
Is this common, buildings like this that are dilapidated, broken down here in North Tulsa?
Absolutely.
Nehemiah Frank is the editor-in-chief of the Black Wall Street Times. He has studied the divide for years.
This plaza used to be a grocery store.
About half of the city's black population lives in North Tulsa, an area where 33% of the population lives below the poverty line. But just miles down the road, South Tulsa is more than 70% white and has twice the median household income.
Are there things that South Tulsa has that North Tulsa does not?
South Tulsa has better schools. Our schools are essentially school-to-prison pipelines.
It's a divide that dates back centuries, perhaps most vividly culminating in the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, when a group of white residents burned and destroyed the historic Greenwood District, more than 30 blocks of black homes and businesses, commonly referred to as Black Wall Street. An area that is still being rebuilt almost 100 years later.
Does that 1921 race massacre still impact Tulsa today?
Yeah, it still impacts us. We never rebuilt. We never recuperated all the business that was lost. Looks like 1921.
That divide affects more than just the residents' livelihoods. It also affects their health. Studies show that residents in wealthier South Tulsa are expected to live 11 years longer than those in North Tulsa. Dr. Gibran Pasha sees huge disparities between his patients.
If you grew up in North Tulsa, certain parts of North Tulsa, you are more likely to have a stroke. You're more likely to suffer from heart disease, to die at a younger age. And for any physician, that really should set some alarms off.
Alarms that many residents say should mark the beginning of a new era.
Tulsa is waking up, and I think that Tulsa wants to become one Tulsa and not the city of two.
Morgan Radford, NBC News, Tulsa.
Still ahead tonight, the debate over monuments. Protesters now tearing down statues of George Washington and Ulysses S. Grant, and staying safe as public pools and water parks open in the age of coronavirus. We're back now with the debate over who we choose to honor in this country. Protesters have been defacing and tearing down monuments to Confederate leaders, but now statues of past presidents have also become targets. Kathy Park reports.
Tonight across the country, more monuments toppled, and not just those commemorating the Confederacy. In Portland, protesters lighting on fire the monument of George Washington before pulling it down.
Honestly, that's a little bit disrespectful to George Washington's legacy.
The nation's first president face down and covered in graffiti because activists say he was a slave owner. Statues also falling in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Demonstrators targeting Ulysses S. Grant, who led the Union Army against the Confederacy but was said to have owned a slave. And Francis Scott Key, who wrote the lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner but was also a slave owner. Eugene Robinson is a columnist for politics and culture for the Washington Post.
People are saying, where do we draw the line, though?
That's a discussion that we should have. It was an imperfect union. It was a union that had racism and white supremacy baked into the original Constitution.
Overnight in D.C., a Confederate statue also falling. General Albert Pike toppled and set ablaze.
Way too many people are being taught that it's something to revere, when really every single Confederate statue in the country is a memorial to the legalization of murder.
Larry Sabato with the UVA Center for Politics says this moment was decades in the making, and the country needs to find ways to compromise.
We're going to have to find a way to agree on what stays and what goes. Everything is clearly not staying. The statues are already being brought down, but everything shouldn't go either.
Robinson says not all statues can stay, especially those with Confederate ties.
They can go to museums where there's proper context, where the history can be explored and explained, but they shouldn't be in places of honor.
Tonight, monuments deeply rooted in history, now dividing a nation shaken by a racial reckoning. Kathy Park, NBC News.
We're back in a moment with the big changes at water parks and public pools. Throughout the COVID crisis, we've been bringing you a series of stories called The Way Back, helping you navigate this new normal. And since today's the first day of summer, we asked Carrie Sanders to see what public pools and water parks are doing to keep you safe.
Summertime, pool time. In our altered coronavirus world, many of the nation's public pools and water parks now slowly splashing back to life, to the delight of bored children.
I love swimming.
In Little Chute, Wisconsin, staff in masks, just 100 people allowed in at a time, and wipe downs every 15 minutes.
You're cleaning all the hot touch points, light switches, bathroom handles, railings.
Even swim classes now socially distanced.
The instructor's on the deck, and then the parents are on the water.
Limits on crowds at water parks, too, at Rapids and Riviera Beach, Florida.
Do you have a fever or chills?
Staff temperatures checked every day.
As much as you all have set up a plan of action, it's not a one-way street, is it? The people who come, we need their help, too.
Guests asked to answer honestly.
No, we're good. We're good.
The Gold family on vacation from Colorado Springs.
Is coronavirus even on your mind?
Not really.
Do you even think about coronavirus?
I'm so excited. I just wanted to get out of the house.
And after every heart-racing flume ride, surfaces disinfected. And of course, there's chlorine, levels here monitored online minute by minute and manually.
And it went clear, which tells us
we're about 3 parts per million.
Which is 3 times what you
normally would do before the coronavirus. Correct.
The CDC says there is no evidence that COVID-19 can spread to people through the water used in pools, and adds the chlorine in the water should inactivate coronavirus. But doctors say it's what's happening poolside that's the problem.
The water is the least important thing you need to worry about when it comes to spreading coronavirus. People shouting, spitting, coughing, that's the way coronavirus gets spread.
Precautions in place for a timeless summertime escape. Carrie Sanders, NBC News, Riviera Beach, Florida.
When we come back, how the pandemic brought this pair together, creating a new friendship that is right on track. Finally, there's good news tonight. In these uncertain times, there's comfort in routine. And it was a routine that created a unique friendship, growing both because of and in spite of the pandemic.
For 3-year-old Jake White in Franklin, Massachusetts, this is the highlight of his day. The familiar whistle and a friendly face.
Hey, Jake, what's
guy. How you doing?
Troy Thornton's been working for the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority for 12 years.
During the pandemic, you didn't see as many kids, but Jake was always here.
When the quarantine started, Jake's mom, Christy, was looking for ways to pass the time, so she'd bring Jake to the platform.
We were going a little stir crazy. We would go to the same train every morning, and then it got to a point where he was like telling me that we had to go see his friend at the train.
During those brief stops, an unexpected friendship grew.
For the longest, we didn't even know each other's name. It was just, hey, buddy.
I say, hi, Troy, see you tomorrow.
And then one day, Jake finally jumped on board. That visit moved Troy, who has a 3-year-old of his own.
He looked out the window, and it was just one of those times like, wow, this is bigger than what I thought it was at first. Everyone remembers being a kid. Everyone remembers how it felt to see someone they thought was a superhero, just someone special to them.
When Troy got assigned a new route, Jake made him a card and even bought him a present with money from his piggy bank. A reminder what a difference a small gesture can make.
You don't know what anyone's going through, but just asking them a hi, a bright smile might change their whole attitude.
Even with that new route, they say they plan to keep visiting each other. That is NBC Nightly News on this Saturday night. I'm Kate Snow. I'll be back with you tomorrow. For all of us at NBC News, stay safe. Have a great night.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.